So, love it. Well, we here this morning are with our dear brother, Brian Culhane, and I can't even start to describe the many hats you wear, from cold fusion to realtor to EXP to father to husband to friend to mentor. I mean, so they're like Marla and I, honored to wear these hats, but most importantly, Marla and I are honored to call you and your family, our family, and our dear brother. And so grateful for you to join us to share your journey since we first met, and how the Tree of Life and the Intention Stick has impacted your life, your family, and wow, the friends that you've shared this with and touched with this, and how it's impacted their lives. And as you know, when we get together, we normally need a sleepover and a long weekend. So this is going to be you sharing your beautiful heart, your story, and your journey. So, world, this is Brian. Brian, this is the world.
Hello, world. Good to meet you. It's been a while.
Been a while.
We've been cooped up in my house here. I've haven't seen the world in a while, so it's good to see everybody.
How have you been handling?
Life is good. We're thriving, and I thank you for that intro. Your check's in the mail. I appreciate that. I'm gonna have to take you on the road with me, guys. But you're no stranger to introducing people, to powerful people, to other powerful people. So I do appreciate that intro, and I know those words are not cheap when you say them, because you definitely you guys have had such an impact on the world and with so many lives, and what you guys are doing with the Tree of Life movement, and how you've just really, I mean, to me, and just to kind of give you a little background on my journey, as we chatted a little bit before the call. I grew up in Chicago. I was a blue collar kid, hardworking, bootstrap, Irish Catholic, little troublemaker maybe mixed in there somewhere, but just hyperactive, right? I was pre ADD diagnosed, undiagnosed ADD, but definitely, a leader and a natural born hero, if you have ever read that Dan Millman book. But, I was just tons of energy, always on the go, had people always kind of, I was very persuasive and influential in my early years, but ultimately, struggled financially as a family, and, had to caddy and, carry golf bags and bus tables and work as a waiter and ditch digger, work for the railroad, work for the brush crew. If there was a shovel and steel toe boots, I had the job. Right. And, but that taught me a really solid work ethic. And, I learned loyalty. I learned to respect successful people, because I was carrying their golf bags and I wanted a good tip, or waiting on their tables and I wanted a good tip. But I learned to, appreciate and emulate and study and really look into what made the mind of successful people tick. I eventually got into sales in Chicago. I was selling commercial real estate advertising and commercial real estate due diligence. And ultimately I was, taking people out that were building, $100 million skyscrapers in downtown Chicago. And I was spending my last $100 to take them out to dinner so I could make a $50 ad commission. And I realized that wasn't, working out for me so well. And so I realized I wanted to be on the other side of the table. I wanted to be a broker. And so, but I was still kind of struggling in Chicago. And so I kind of threw all my clothes in a hefty cinch sack and hitched a ride with a buddy and headed west, young man, and jumped in his car. And he was telling me, we're rolling out to Arizona, and there might be a job for you. And I kind of said, all right, that's good enough for me. Let's go. And literally all my possessions in a little bag, and maybe had $100 to my name, and kind of threw all my lot into that moment, and rolled out to Arizona. And once I got out here, I met two very important people. I met my wife, Christy, and she really changed me and it brought out the best in me, I should say. Helped me actualize, who I, in my mind's eye, who I wanted to be, and who I had the potential to be. And she gave me a reason to be that person, right? I before my wife, I'm sure you guys can relate, I would have been fine sleeping on my friend's couch and traveling the world with my alms bowl and, begging for dinner. I would have been fine with that lifestyle. And, but once you meet somebody special and you realize it's time to put roots down. And so, and then in very short order after meeting Christy, I met Glenn Sanford. And Glenn was my first real business coach and mentor and really life coach that set me straight. And, you know, we've now in the last 15 years, you know, we've built one of the largest real estate companies in the world. And life has gotten a lot better financially for me and my family. But along the way, I've had some interesting things happen to me. And, you know, not the least of which was falling off my mountain bike and breaking my hip. And so that happened in my mid 30s, getting close to about 10 years now that I first broke my hip. And it was just, you know, a freak. I was taking my mountain bike around the block. You know, it was a bit sunny, you know, September afternoon. So it was fairly hot outside. And I just went around the block, went off a curb, a little cute, you know, a little too cute, you know, that old athlete, you know, competitive edge. And I was trying to do some sort of stupid mountain bike move. And I ended up flipping over head over heels and broke the ball off my femur. And that was the moment that really set me on the path that eventually led to meeting you folks. But it was really that eye-opening. And I say I'm fortunate to have broken my hip at an early age and to have lost my mobility, you know, for that first, well, really the first 2 months, I couldn't even get out of bed. I mean, when I went to get up after my injury, my legs stayed, right? So, I mean, it was completely separate from my skeletal system. And so that to repair that and rebuild that, and they wanted to grow back together, and they had all kinds of hardware and pins and needles and whatever else they stick in there. And you know, I was on all kinds of medication, and I literally lost my mobility. And then I had a walker for 8 months because I couldn't put weight on that joint. And you know, on and off medication, on and off all kinds of problems, and caused me all kinds. It was like a cascading health issue. And you know, it ended up with heart arrhythmia. I ended up with endocrine system problems. I ended up with throat issues and jawbone infections and back muscle aches, and you know, you name it, I had it. As a matter of fact, what really set me on the first thing I really did to get healthy, I actually did two things to get healthy. And I know this also is an interconnected story that we might get into in a minute. But the first thing I really did was it was December 15th, 2016. So a good 6 years after, or 5 years after my injury. And I actually ended up having to get the hip replacement anyway in 2012 or 2013. So basically it was a 5-year nightmare. And I was about 75 pounds overweight. I was pushing 300 pounds. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'6", but 300 pounds was too much weight. And I couldn't breathe. You know, I couldn't get that fresh air. And we just put a pool in. And again, it's December, Arizona. It does get cold in Arizona.
Yeah.
You guys know, a couple months of the year we get down there.
Absolutely.
Water was probably in the 30s.
Mhm.
And I just had this like piece of information in my head that was effectively some old Navy SEAL that had turned into a woods, lived in the woods, like under a tree stump. His name was Mick Dodge. Well, he had an old show on Discovery Channel. And one of the pieces of information that I remember hearing was, he said, I learned this trick in the Navy SEALs when he got a virus and he was sitting and living in the woods. And he goes, there's not a pharmacy here. There's not a, you know, and so he goes, how do you get rid of a virus when you live in the woods? He said, well, he hiked up to a glacier river and he jumped in the cold water. And then for about, 20 minutes, he'd frolic around in the cold water. And then for 20 minutes, he'd lay on these hot rocks in the sun. And then he'd do 20 minutes in the water, 20 minutes on the sun. And he did this for 3 days. He literally said that you can make it so uncomfortable in your body, you can squeeze the viruses off your cells. And so that was and by the way, I'd heard that information like years before I finally put it together. Right. So now here I am feeling crummy, had a cold, couldn't breathe. I said, I'm jumping in my pool. And I remember just like instinctively thinking it's going to like almost be like a defibrillator and like shock my system. Give me that fresh air. And it did. And believe me, it was cold and mind numbing and I hated it. And I was in and out in 10 seconds or less. But I took a picture and I started like sharing it with friends, and people called me crazy and said, what are you doing? You're nuts. You're going to give yourself a cold. What are you doing? And I just kept at it. And then eventually my wife heard on a podcast that we listened to about a book that was called What Doesn't Kill Us. And that book was, of course, written about Wim Hof.
Yes.
And so then she got me the book for my birthday. I started reading it voraciously. I started implementing what I learned from the book. And then I added the breathing component. And that really set me on my path for transformation and really getting, and a big part of what WIM is all about is setting your intention. And so when I finally met you guys through a work friend, and we went out to that famous dinner that we all had together, when you guys brought up your intention stick, it just really resonated with me because, I had made a career out of bouncing from the foot of one master or one coach to another, to a master, to a life coach, and I would put you folks up there, Scott and Marla, I'd put you up there as gurus in my life. And really from a spiritual and an emotional and a mental mindset gurus, that's how I view you. Scott, you and I jokingly, I refer to you jokingly as my rabbi, but you even share with me that you, and maybe in another life, you probably were a rabbi, or you've got it in your blood certainly. But I grew up in Highland Park, Illinois, and I'm no stranger to bat and bar mitzvahs. So I'm more of a universal spiritual person. I refer to myself as a Zen Catholic these days, and to that end, and maybe if you want me to share this now, or I can wait, but you've really helped me with some really powerful pieces that I've brought into my life that are very symbolic. But we can share that story in a minute. But this thing is this thing's gorgeous, but it's got some really cool elements in it, including a lot of the stuff we just talked about. So we can maybe share that in a minute. But the intention stick really set me straight. Even when I came to you and asked you for one that was made out of copper because of my throat issues, and I was really still at a fairly low point health-wise when you helped me with that. So I thank you a lot for helping me, and here we are now. So feeling better.
It's incredible. Well, one, thank you for sharing your journey, literally from childhood to right now, and there's a lot more, obviously, in between.
Yeah, I try to keep it short.
No, but that was spot on, laser focused to the point. And what I would love to share, that miraculous day after you came in to the office and said, hey, you did understand the healing powers of copper and your throat. And we probably were in our office for a good 2 hours at least. And what we really did was we focused on what, as most people in this world, not just you, we keep pushing things down, and I'm fine, and I'm that, again, the facade that Marla and I talk about every day, and we never speak our truth, or we're never our truth, because we're all worried about what someone else will think of us.
Yeah.
And we just push it down, and again, hence you were having throat problems.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about with Marla about the letting go, right?
Yeah,
Forgiveness.
Yes.
Of maybe someone in our past or childhood, or even as an adult, or hurt us in business, whatever that may be, but to really understand what forgiveness means, to say thank you for those lessons and those gifts, as hard as they were for you. And we talked some pretty deep things that had taken place, but to forgive and let that go and send it with love.
Yeah.
And
it really was impactful, Scott, because I mean, even in just that short summary of my long journey, growing up in a affluent neighborhood and not being an affluent kid, definitely caused some challenges in my life, and a lot of that residual pain stuck with me, and it manifested in the form of hypervigilance and not feeling good enough and not feeling invited to the party, right? And so because of that hypervigilance that I developed to prove them wrong, and I was never part of the in crowd, so I was hell bent on becoming the in crowd, right? And never missing a call, and never not responding to a voicemail or a text message or a email, and that hypervigilance literally started to deteriorate my vocal cords and cause me other pain. And there was other things going on. I think the hip implant and electromagnetic sensitivity, and there's a lot going on with me. But I've really, and it wasn't a coincidence, obviously, that as I was working with you, I was also working with folks like Troy Casey and Phil Folsom, and getting really clear on a lot of that, childhood wound stuff, and a lot of that, and and just the fact that your words are your magic wand, and what you say you are is what you become, and just really unpacking a lot of that. And some of it is even genetic, right? I mean, it's genetic, pain that is expressing itself from maybe even being, an Irish, potato farmer 6 generations ago.
100%.
And now I'm, feeling like I'm not going to have enough. And I need to hoard, or I need to, collect my, keep my nuts in my tree stump or whatever.
Yes.
And, who knows where that comes from, right? I mean, that could easily be old wounds. So it's not an accident that, working with you. And I think the cool part of our story was, and we've got a lot of cool moments. I mean, I could,
Wow.
my head is swirling with conversations that we've had, and coincidences and synchronicities.
Yes.
But when I came to you and asked you to help me create a copper cross, that was the original request. Obviously you guys make beautiful, fantastic jewelry, and I said, hey, Scott, I really want a piece of copper to wear around my neck. And I didn't know you guys had copper intention sticks either. But you said, and I said, can we make an intention stick into a cross, and, this and that. And you said, Brian, I have a, come kind of in your Scott Berger way. He's like, no, I have a thought. Let me get clear on this. And you basically said, let's do a copper intention stick, and let's create you a masterpiece cross that really embodies everything that you're about. And so as you can see, and this was a back and forth and very collaborative. And you shared with me an example of another piece that you had done with somebody who had brought in chakra stones. And it was a really cool, straight kind of, box with the kind of the stones stacked into it. And I thought that was just exquisite. And I said, well, can we make one into a cross? And, obviously, you work with some famous people and some rockers, and I said, obviously I always wanted to be a rapper, by the way, as a kid. So, this is perfect, right? Flavor Flav. And, but we just got to work it. And I said, well, what if we could create a cross with, so if you can kind of see, the chakra stones are kind of embedded, and I didn't want it to be too flashy, because I'm somewhat of a simple person, and kind of wanted to have the simple cross outline, but you really brought it home with how you kind of implemented all these different chakra stones. And it's kind of cool because the chakra stones actually kind of go to the corresponding parts of the body, if you think of it as a human stick
Remember
figure.
what I saw? I said it's the tree of life.
Right.
Tree of life is the chakras and
the body,
the stones. And what we did and what we created together is a masterpiece. And thank you for saying that. But what really came in, that it needed to be about you and your beautiful wife and your family.
Right. And then that's where you talk about that.
Your birthstone, and on the back, your wife's birthstone, so you can wear her close to your heart always as well.
Yes.
And it is so special and such love.
Well, then don't forget the best part, right? So to kind of get back to my roots and kind of the origin story. So I said, you had showed me another piece, and I said, oh, can we get that on the back of my cross to kind of, symbolize my, my upbringing in a Jewish neighborhood, and, my 40 or 50 bat mitzvahs, and the fact that I can do Baruch atah Adonai, I can do that pretty quickly. And so we added the Basheret, right?
Yes.
And which really was symbolic for me, because it was sort of be and let be, or let it be, or just kind of let it go, right?
Yes. So what I'm going to explain to most people, some may know and some may not understand what that Hebrew word on the bottom of the cross says. It says Basheret. And Basheret phonetically is spelled Bashert. And Basheret means it comes from above. Like this conversation we're having is Basheret. Marla and I, you and your wife, we were brought together. This is Basheret. The tree of life, the intention stick is Basheret. It's a gift we're given to help others, to heal the world, knowing that everything is happening exactly how it should, as we are always being guided.
Yeah.
And we have to, as you do now, you trust the journey and know everything is happening for us. And the journey you've been on, as challenging or painful, meaning from the accident to health issues to business, has always been a gift, and it brought you to the next place in your life, and it made you who you are today. And what I want to go back to that miraculous day of you putting on your copper intention stick, by the way, is you saw for the first time your truth, meaning who you were and who you needed to be and who you needed to truly show to the world, which is what we all need to do, because you already know I am that I am.
Right.
But I know we say God, but someone may say the universe, the source, the light, whatever that person may believe in, a higher power, that we're all made perfect. We do not need to be anyone other than who we are, and the world needs to see who you are. And that is perfection, because we're made in that image, and you literally decided to do that, to turn off your phones, your social media, your, as we say, the addiction of a phone and messaging and selfies, and you became your truth. And from that moment, you went whoosh.
Yeah.
Like the Brian exploded for the world to see, and not just business, but the souls you've been impacting with the cold fusion and the groups you're bringing together and the souls you're connecting around the world. So that is the share.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it couldn't happen at a better time, right?
Divine time.
Yeah. I mean, I was really searching probably my whole life for who I was, right? And never really realized that you are who you are, or you are you. And you really helped me with that. Obviously the word guru, right? You are you. That really helped me. And just being okay with that, you know, and realizing that I don't have to always be, I mean, I think we all have that drive inside of us. You know, it's what makes a baby want to go from laying to crawling, and then from crawling to toddling, and then from toddling to walking, and walking to running, and then from running to wanting to leave the house and then travel the world and go to college. And, you know, and like, why do you get up every day and, you know, want to slay the dragon? I just think there's something inside of all of us that is that little voice that says you could be better, you know, you could do more, you know. And I think the downside or the shadow of that is that you're not good enough. And I was way too focused on the you're not good enough, you got to be something else. And and once I was able to recognize that you're good who you are, you know, but you can still work on yourself and improve yourself, but it just changed the nature of that work, and allowed me to just be okay and kind of relax and share it. And it did just, I mean, the pain literally just left. I mean, you know, not all at once, but I mean, even in those early conversations, and as soon as I'd start putting on the copper intention stick, you know, I could feel the vibrations changing. And, you know, and a lot of it was stress, you know, when I would get more stressed and acidic, and my blood would get less alkaline, and I'd be on my phone or be all caught up in my digital self. That's when the inflammation would kick in. And when I was talking with you and, you know, learning to just let it go, you know, then the pain would go away. And so I knew then it was very, you know, it was a psychic pain more than, you know, some sort of disease or disorder or cancer or whatever. You know, it was much more of a mental pain that I needed to work through.
Amazing. I know you want to add.
No, I'm first of all, I'm just amazed at who you are and who you've become and the journey you've been on. I'm in awe. And thank you, as Scott's mentioned before, for all the lives now that you're touching. And that's what this is about, that we're all suffering in a sense, right? We're all put through challenges. That's the tree of life. And when you mention, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough.
Popular. Yeah.
These, that's right. Whatever it is that your challenge is, because we're all given something. You know, one of the things that I share with people who are going through that is to look back at images or photos of you when you were a child and really look, because, you know, the soul hasn't changed,
Yeah.
right? The only thing that's changed is our physical form, our physical body, but the soul is the same. Our soul is the same. So when you look back at photos of yourself when you're a child, give your child information, yourself as a young kid, and say, everything's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. You are good enough. You are smart enough. Whatever that is for you, and watch it just melt away.
Yeah.
And to know that you are supported, because the things
can I interject? That's really funny that you mentioned that, because it just popped into my head. But my mom sent me a photo probably yesterday of me and my grandmother, her mother, and I looked super happy, and she, you know, I think it was a graduation party for high school, and she was there and I was there. But the memory of my grandmother is an interesting situation, because she was last generation, had a lot of kids. I think my mom, I think there's 6 or 7 of them. And, you know, she kind of had, she was just that German Protestant, work ethic type grandma, no nonsense grandma. And one of the things that first popped into my head when I saw that photo was my grandma used to say, they had a big cottage up in Door County, Wisconsin. And my grandma said, I wasn't cottage material. so I don't know, maybe my whole life I've been trying to become cottage material. Grandma, am I cottage material finally? But that might have been actually like the early germ of that, that seed of you're not good enough, right? So she would kick me outside all day and I had to play outside. Now I was playing in paradise, don't get me wrong. It was the white squeaky sand in the center of the bay of Jacksonport up in Door County, Wisconsin. I mean, it could have been a better, but I was lonely. I wasn't allowed inside. I had older uncles and cousins and no one my age to play with. And so I was just playing with my little G.I. Joe guys on the beach. But it was like I was sad, living in paradise effective. I mean, I would kill to be there right now. Right? But that was an interesting, upbringing. And, I didn't have doting grandparents, and my grandfather had passed away. Speaking of trees and family trees, my grandfather, my dad's an interesting story. He was the president of the Pritzker Family Holding Company by the time he was 52, and he was a Gold Gloves Notre Dame law professor and boxer and second in his class ROTC, and just an all around just amazing, dressed like Cary Grant, and acted like Humphrey Bogart, and just was a complete badass guy. And I think I have a lot of that in me. But unfortunately, on the way to his dad's funeral, he hit a tree and died a few days later. So literally on the way to my great grandpa's funeral, my grandpa spun out on some ice, and my dad, who was an amazing dad, and my parents were amazing and hardworking and always there for me. But he wasn't necessarily, following in grandpa's footsteps financially, right? Grandpa was a square, and my dad was a 60s hippie, long hair, guitar playing artist, painter. And so it was kind of an interesting upbringing. But I think my dad always had some of that in him too. So he definitely imparted a lot of that, I think, Grandpa Frank wisdom into me. And I think my mission statement that now I've realized in my life, and part of that hypervigilance again, is sort of to grab the family tree, at least financially, and kind of stick it back up and, jam it back into the ground and, blow on the roots a little bit and, try to get that thing growing again. But that's been kind of my mission in life, was to, get our financial trajectory back on path where Grandpa left it. And I think I've done that.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And again, thank you for sharing. You're exactly right with what you were talking about. You touched on, your childhood of visiting your grandmother and the feelings that you still hold on to, that you remember when you reflect.
Yeah.
Right. and
I'm gonna go talk to that photo though. My mom sent me. I'm
Yes,
gonna
because
have a
those
conversation with that photo later.
yeah, because
Truly.
as an adult, we might think logically, oh, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you reflect and really look at that image of what it means to you, relates to who you are today
Yeah.
and what we might be still holding on to, and why we do react a certain way to certain situations, or why we're behaving a certain way in certain relationships.
Mhm.
So yes, so
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful exercise.
Remember we talked about, which will sound interesting to a lot, that past, present, and future is all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
You have the ability to go back to that moment in time or any time in our lives, whether challenging or a feeling you were having, and send that little boy, that little girl, the love and the courage, the support, the kindness that was needed
Yeah.
at that moment. Because wow, again, just making my hair stand up, watch you fill up and let go of maybe that moment that you were feeling that sadness or aloneness. And
Yeah.
it was a lesson. And speaking of lessons, to someone that has also been on maybe a similar journey like you or Marla and I, and anyone in this world, how do you say to them to use the intention sticker, how it's impacted, or what you recommend for them that may not have received one for themselves or by
Yeah.
another?
Well, it goes back to, what you're programming your brain with. And, I would be lying if I said when I first, because it was all kind of swirling around me at the same time, your messaging and your concept of the Tree of Life movement. And then I kind of was working with Troy and working with Phil and some other people and Glenn and all his, manifesting and all the stuff we talked about over there. And it was kind of all coming together at the same time. But I could see how the old Brian, or sort of the lost version of Brian, didn't recognize, maybe the true power of what was happening. And so, maybe you could easily write it off. If the first time you see this or hear about the Tree of Life movement, you might just dismiss it and go, oh, that's just hokey BS, right? Yeah. Well, how could that possibly help me, right? I got real pain over here. How's this stupid necklace going to make any difference in my life, right? Like, I grew up in that Chicago, don't bother me, blah, 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 jock, whatever. And but I embraced it. I got into it, and and again, it was like a little bit of here, a little bit of there, a little bit of I almost view it as code cracking or safe cracking, right? I was trying to unlock the code.
Yes.
And this was really a key that you can like stick in the universal mystery, box, open it, because it really gave me the ability to understand that it all starts with my word. Even the Old Testament talks about, in the beginning was the word, and everything else spun out from that. Correct. And, abracadabra means, your words are your magic wand, right? Speak your words into existence, like Troy would say. And so that was all kind of swirling around me. And as soon as I just grabbed that and took control of that. And so I think, the words I'd first put in were, health, love, and courage. And, and again, working through the stuff that I was working through at the time, and, letting go and loving myself more. And, health, obviously just wanted to make health a focus. And, I, for those that know, I've been in the coaching space my whole life. Even when I was playing, I was, kind of a leader and a coach of the other teammates. And then I got into coaching basketball, and then now through real estate and coaching and motivating real estate professionals. And, looking back, I was doing it wrong. At some level I was like, grind harder, push yourself, let's go, work harder, hit it harder. And then I started thinking like, and here I was like, I wanted to check out at 2 p.m. I was, getting angry at people, and I was, because of my throat pain, I just didn't want to talk to people, and I had low T, so I was getting real tired. And I realized, if you think about what is the essence of sales, it's really to go out and make new friends. If I'm sitting here training a room full of sales agents, I would say, and it doesn't matter what you're selling, cars, telephone, communication equipment, whatever. I said, listen, your job is to go out and make 25 new friends today with strangers. and create conversations out in thin air. And that's a very intimidating thing. And for a lot of folks, that brings up all kinds of chemical, reactions in your body. Because a lot of this is chemical, and every thought creates a cascading chemical reaction throughout your body. And so I'm sitting there, going, okay, I'm asking these people to get up and go make 25 new friends today. And some of these folks don't even want to get out of bed in the morning. They don't like the way they look in the mirror. They had super low energy. They were feeling pain. They were feeling shame, whatever the emotions were. And I'm sure it was a combination of all of it. And so I realized I was doing it wrong. So now in the last year or two, and part to, what you mentioned with Cold Fusion and what we're doing at EXP and with the Culhane group, is that now instead of working, because you can't work on financial freedom. No. You can't work on time freedom. Those are byproducts. Those are the residuals of the real work, which is working on the pain. And so I've completely flipped my entire coaching around, and a lot of it's due to this and getting, so what I now, when I work with someone for the first time, even when I'm interviewing them or trying to attract them to the company, I really dive into the mental and the physical pain piece. And I started asking them, I said, if I say the words, I am ... how do you fill that in? What is your I am statement, right? Yeah. And that all goes back to intention, right? Like, what is their mission? What is their legacy? What is their purpose? What is their intention for this life that we are living on in this plane, in this material plane that we all exist in? And I said, and a lot of, and Scott, you know this, and Marla, you know this, most people don't have an answer, right? They've never thought about it. And it's mystifying.
It is because the world has been programmed to just be something they are not. Wake up, have breakfast, go to work, day, year, decade. They have no idea.
Drones, right? We're droning on.
A dear friend of ours on the other side of the world, his name is Nigel. He said to me, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "I'm here to serve. I'm here to help. I'm here to touch another soul." And he says to me, he goes, "I'm a salesman." I go, "Oh, what do you sell?" He says, "I sell happiness." And that's what we all do. We have to sell love and happiness and kindness and compassion and gratitude and light and everything that I am statement is, because when we're in that alignment, wow.
Watch what shows up.
And I would improve that comment a little bit, or maybe even put this back to you, because I see it for what you've done and what you guys are so good at is it's not giving me happiness, right? You're not providing me happiness externally. You bring the happiness out, and it's more of it's more of like a happiness midwife, right? You're helping birth that joy and happiness, and you're helping us with breathing exercises and Lamaze and wherever. But it's more of a happiness midwifery, right? But you have to also identify who's capable of bringing that happiness out.
Do you remember what we said many times? I mean, we've talked hundreds of times, but I said it goes back to unconditional love, which this world does not understand, even though it's in every spiritual and religious book in the world. And what we read or meditate in the morning, it says, love your brother and your sister like you love yourself. And how can we truly love someone else if we don't love who we are?
Right.
And it's, as you just said, it's the most difficult thing, as Marla and I have shared with you, to achieve in this lifetime, to yes, look in the mirror and say, I love you, or even use your name to say, Scott, I love you, or Brian, I love you. You know, when Marla and I say to you and your wife, I love you, that it's true in our hearts. It's not the, oh, I love you, kiss, kiss. And that's what this world has to achieve, is that first, that happiness from within, that love for themselves, so they can continue to give that love to everyone that walks into their lives, and that happiness in their lives. And that's why we are witnessing this spread around the world, as Marla's vision, that beautiful beautiful tsunami sweeping the world from pure love and pure intention. And this is why you and your family and all the friends and the people you're mentoring that you've gifted this to are as important to this as Marla and I, because you do now know this is about us collectively. It's not Marla and I, it's not you, it's all of us doing this together and coming back together as one. And we're not talking about it anymore. We're actually doing it. So,
well, and to your point, the Greeks have 6 words for love. You've got sort of eros, which is the kiss, sexual passion, love, right? You've got, philia, which is more of like love of, or like love of friendship, philos, Sophia is lover of wisdom, right?
yes.
And that's philosophy. Ludus is more of like a playful, right? You've got that one. But the one that I think really resonates with you and what we're discussing is the agape, which is a love of everyone, right? That's that,
Yes.
and then you've got, of course, pragma, is more of like just a understanding of love. And then there's love of self, which is I think it's like philutia or something like that, but it's the philos, right? The love of self. But that's, and I think that's why people get, in modern, Western society, we just think love is like one word. It's like, oh, love, you love me, that's creepy, don't love, hey, whatever, it's like, but they don't understand, or we didn't understand that, that there's all kinds of different love happening, and a lot of it's chemical, right? I mean, it's and something I've also discovered through, working with you and now in turn, not just work, at some point you got to stop working on yourself. It's like it gets a little exhausting, and the solution to happiness, in my opinion, is not in working on yourself. It's getting through that so that you are the best version of yourself in order to help other people. And I one of my ancestors is Father John Daly, who wrote the book. He was a Jesuit theologian. He was the dean of I think Detroit University, and back, like, this is going back like a long time, and he's actually my great uncle. So he's my grandmother's, my dad's mom's uncle. And so, but he wrote the book, The Jesuit in Focus, and he wrote the book, The Happy Ascetic. Yeah. And it was kind of a cool moment in my life, because my grandma gave me these books, and it had handwritten letters from him in it, and it was really cool. But I was struggling with, my mom had, right before I left for college, my mom gave me a yoga book, and it, like, like, my mom is kind of my spiritual hippie, a guide before I met you guys. And my mom gave me that book, and so I started going really down that path, and I got really into like selflessness, but I was also playing college basketball, so I had to like lift weights and work on myself. And I was kind of like in this weird spot where I was like, well, why am I working so hard on myself? And this is too much self-love, right? And I was like too obsessed on myself. So I started kind of going the other direction, and I started kind of letting myself go, because I was trying to be so selfless. And I'm studying Greek philosophy and Buddhism and all this stuff, and it was kind of like you letting go of the self. And then I got that book, and that little piece of information that my great uncle had written in there that was so helpful was, he said, in order to teach excellence, one has to first become personally excellent. So that's why the Jesuits were the best horse riders and the best fencers and the most educated and the best scholars. And, they were the knights, and they were they were just like, one-man armies of everything, right? They were the intelligentsia. They were the early capitalists. They were doing credit cards and, banking before anybody. And they set up the first universities. And so in order to help others, one has to first be personally excellent. And so that piece of information has really guided the last 25 years of my life, because it gave me permission to work on myself and not feel guilty about it.
And that is the tree of life. As we've talked about, it's not being better than anyone else in this world. Mm-hmm. It's being better than who we were yesterday. We're here to grow. And exactly what you just said, the happiness that we receive is from helping someone else get through something that may be much more difficult or worse than what someone
And
else
that's
through.
the real happiness for me. That's the one that releases the endorphins, the satisfaction,
Why we're here.
yeah. I mean, I really put that at the top of my list of why I do anything at
Yes,
this point. And it took me a while to get there. And I've always liked helping people, but I mean, when you're so focused on trying to help yourself,
correct.
you know, and you don't have, you know, it's like I look at even wealth as, you know, just increases my capacity to help other people more, you know.
Yes,
So that's where we do
Yeah.
these events, we do all this stuff.
and you're so spot on. And when someone can realize, which you have, why we were given our tools, our gifts, whether it's knowledge, abundance, a platform, you're a superstar, whatever, you're making coffee, as we've talked about, it's to touch another soul, to have a soul to soul connection. And when you can fill that person up that you've just reached and they do the same for another, there's $1 trillion that could never bring you that happiness and bliss that we are supposed to be in that state of. And that is that level you've achieved on our journey. And I'm not saying this in any other way than other than Marla and I are so proud of you for being exactly you. And we love you and your wife and your children. And we are so blessed we're in each other's lives. And you
Thank
know, the journey's just beginning, right, my brother?
Thank you. Yes, I feel that. No, you guys have been amazing. And, you know, obviously Scott and Marla, we've talked a lot about, you know, doing more things together and bringing kind of our worlds together. And, you know, I just see this as such a valuable tool and experience to bring and share with our teams. And as we're growing and building leaders and helping people and creating this army of, you know, helping others, you know, this is a critical piece for that. And again, it all starts with them getting clear and setting their intentions. You know, I'm all about boiling things down to the simplest, most implementable, you know, bite-sizable things. And so my current philosophy and based a lot in this and my coaching philosophy is it's 2 I's: intend and implement. If you can just get friggin' laser focused on what do you want to intend and then implement it, the world is your oyster, right? You'll be able to create any reality you want.
And then your third eye will open. Then
right. Well, that's connecting to the cosmos, right? That's the stepping into your purpose.
And I'm going to end on this because I love that you brought up the Greek philosophy of love. And you know, on our homepage of our website on treeoflifemovement.com, it's an ancient Greek proverb that says a society grows great when old men plant trees in which they know the shade they will never sit in.
Oh, that just made me get chills. Look at hey, look, Scott, the hair on my arm just stood up, brother. What do you think? Nailed it.
It's not about us. This is about
that is really
children,
profound. Yeah.
The grandchildren, the great generations to grow up living a life of intention and love, to eradicate all the negativity and hatred in the world. And we are doing that. And I love you and your family.
Well, Scott, I don't plant trees. I just put up umbrellas. Okay. So I'm, you know, we're in Arizona, bro. I don't have time for trees. Don't grow so fast.
You know what? People don't also realize we plant a tree with every.
No, look, I'm planting trees. I'm kidding. Look,
I know you do.
There's our garden we started, right?
Well, we're signing off, but as you know, Marla and I are sending you and your family blessings and intentions of gratitude, light, and love. Love you, my brother.
Thank you, guys. Love you too.
And, we'll see you soon for real hugs.
Looking forward to it. Absolutely. We got to have another big dinner party. You know, nothing like having dinner with the burgers.
Absolutely. We can't wait. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
See you, my brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye.